Okay, welcome everybody once again. Thank you for joining me today. If this is your first time at one of our sessions, my name is Josue Sanchez. I'm the program manager at ComputerWise Kids, and we offer technology education classes to grade school children. We work with many schools around LAUSD, throughout LAUSD, but today we're providing a PD for you guys to kind of help you get started with Nearpod today. And we've also done a few others on different topics, and you can find those if you missed out on those PDs. You can find that on our YouTube channel, which I'll post a link to at the end of today's session. Okay. By the way, I do want to let you guys know that this session is being live streamed on YouTube. So just for your information, and then when we are done, it will be uploaded to our channel so you can go back and review it as well. Now, I did post a link to this Google slide presentation. Can everybody see it okay? Let me know in the chat if you're seeing it on my screen up just fine. You don't have to have it open and follow along. I'm going to be mentioning a few things on here, but most of the time I'll be demoing how to do all the steps that we're going to cover today. So I think that's more valuable than just going through a presentation, but actually doing the stuff with you. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. If you do have any questions, please type them into the chat, and then I will do my best to answer them. And then we will have a question and answer section at the end of the meeting as well, or the session as well. Yes, I'm going to post that link one more time to that Google slide. And if this is, oh, actually, let me put it to everybody here. 1 second. Yeah, let's do it one more time. Okay. So if you are on this screen and you want to make a copy for yourself, you can always go to File up here and select Make a Copy. If you're signed in with a Google account, such as your LAUSD account, or even a personal Gmail account, you can make a copy of the entire presentation. It will make a copy in your Google Drive for you to go back and look through. Or if you prefer to download it to your computer as a PowerPoint or PDF, you can again come to File and just go to Download, and you'll have the option here, Microsoft PowerPoint or PDF document. Just be aware that if you do select the download options, there may be some formatting issues. Okay, so it's always best viewed on a Google slide document like we have here. Now, let me quickly discuss what we'll be going over today. First, we're going to talk about what Nearpod is and some of its benefits. I'm going to model how to create an account and how to sign into it. We'll talk a little bit about the different settings that are available on Nearpods, and we'll discuss adding lessons to your library, how to look for pre-made lessons, and then how to create your own lessons. Okay. We'll also do a sample of running a lesson, and I'll be modeling the teacher view or showing you the teacher view and the student view as well. And then after the lesson, I'm going to show you how to view the reports. Okay, and then we'll have our question and answer section. So if you're following along on the slides, feel free to move along with me. I'm only going to be on here for the beginning part, and then we'll switch over to actual demonstration. So what is Nearpod? Well, Nearpod is a platform that easily allows teachers to create, download, and teach interactive lessons. One of the benefits about Nearpod, and one of the struggles that we're experiencing with the long distance learning, is students are on a variety of devices. Some of them are on tablets, some of them are on laptops or desktops, some of them have a Mac laptop, others have a Chromebook, some of them are even logging in with their phones. Well, fortunately, Nearpod works across all of these devices just fine. They have a web-based interface, and they also have an app that students can download on either Android or iOS. So whatever device they have on hand, they'll be able to participate on the Nearpod lessons. So some of the benefits of using Nearpod is you can see immediate feedback. You can provide immediate feedback. You can have access to post-session reports. Again, it synchronizes across all these devices, and I'll show you how that works, where as a teacher, you can start a live lesson, and if you move something, it moves it for everybody, and everybody is on the same screen at the same time with a live lesson. You also have the option right now to do a student pace where you can assign a lesson for maybe homework or classwork and let the students work on it on their own pace. I do want to mention though that typically that feature is a premium feature, but Nearpod is allowing all users to use that feature for now to help with this long distance learning. So I'll be modeling the difference between the two as well. So now let's go ahead and go through a sample of how to create an account on Nearpod and how to get started. So I have a tab open here to Nearpod already, and the website is nearpod.com. You could also do a Google search for Nearpod and it should be the first result. Now, up on the top, you have this this green button that says sign up for free. So we can sign up and select. I like to select my Google account just because it's an easy way to sign in. And you guys will be using, most of you anyways, will be using your district account, which doubles as the Google account. So that's always best practice to use. So you press sign up with Google, and then I have already signed up, but you guys would just need to allow it access to your Google account. It's a simple pop-up, and you just press allow one time and you're in. Okay. So what we're looking at now is the teacher dashboard. And in here, you'll get to see all the lessons that you have in your library, as well as have access to, if we look on the side here, have access to a lesson library where we can search through different pre-made lessons and add them to our personal library so we can run them. We can also access our reports. And then here's some other buttons such as announcements of what's new, frequently asked questions, and some teacher resources. Okay. And you yourself could also join a session through here by entering a code. Let me first talk about a little bit about the settings and some important settings that we can enable to help our students throughout the Nearpod. Okay. So if we go up here to the top, we have our silhouette of our account here. And then we have this gear. This is our settings gear. One of the latest improvements to Nearpod is something called Immersive Reader. You might have heard about this from Microsoft, but basically Immersive Reader, if I can show you over here on this tab, it will enlarge the text for students, and it has the ability to change the contrast and colors and also read to them. So if you have any students who are English learners or have a special need in that sense, then Immersive Reader can really help facilitate Nearpod for them, as it can read the directions out loud to them or highlight words in a specific way. So that's definitely a setting that you want to check out. And again, it's something that's relatively new to Nearpod. So you want to come into the settings here under Advanced and enable this. Okay. Now, since we're on this screen, I do want to mention student notes. Students have the abilities to take notes throughout the lesson. However, this is a premium feature. Okay, so I do want to mention that the ability to take notes is a premium feature, but what it will do is allow them to type up a short message on a given slide presentation that you're on, and it will then save it automatically into their Google Drive, and they'll be able to retrieve it. Okay. But if this is not something that you're interested right now at the moment, which if you're working with younger students, note-taking in the middle of a lesson like this might not be the best thing, but definitely use the Immersive Reader option. Okay. So now let me go back to my dashboard, and let's actually run a lesson before we get into searching for one or creating one of our own. I want to actually show you what the lessons look like. So I'm going to open up a lesson, a pre-made lesson that we have here. Give me 1 second. So we'll add this lesson here. This is a basic lesson on shapes. I'm going to add this one to my library. Okay. By the way, any lesson that you create can be shared with other people. Yeah, there is a very easy way to just give everybody a link so they can have access to and even modify their own version of this lesson. So I have now here on my Nearpod, I've added this lesson on shapes. And you notice when I hover over this lesson, there are two main options. I have live lesson and student pace. Live lesson will allow me to run a lesson and synchronize each slide across all the devices. So all the students who are on the live lesson will be viewing the same content at the same time. If I'm assigning something for homework or even now, if you want them to do a lesson at home, you can assign a student paced lesson and they will be able to go through the lesson on their own, at their own pace. This is, again, free for now to help with long distance learning. Typically, it is a premium feature, but right now we have free access to that. So I'm gonna model a live lesson just to show you that functionality of how to sync across different devices. So I'm gonna start the live lesson. And you're gonna notice that the first thing that'll pop up on my screen is a code, okay? And so here we have a little quick tour. It's telling us that this is our Nearpod code and we need to share it with the students so they can join the lesson. I'm going to just copy and, okay, let me click on it next. We can skip this little tour here. Okay, so here's my student code. I'm just going to copy this over. And I have a tab here already to the student login, which is conveniently just nearpod.com/student. Okay. If they can also access this from the Nearpod website, and just to, actually I'm signed in right now, but there is an option there where it will say join with code. Okay. So let me go ahead and go back to student. Okay, so I'm going to type in the code here and then we'll press the join button. Okay, first thing it'll ask me once I join is actually to provide a name. So I'm just going to put my first name here and then press join session. Now it says, welcome, wait for the teacher to start the session. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and get started. I'll move this over. This is my teacher view. I know it's my teacher view because I have these directional arrows on the side and we have the code up on the top here, okay? And then I'm gonna switch over to my student view and you'll see that this screen has now changed. So whatever screen the teacher's on, that's what the students will be on. They can't move ahead themselves. You see they don't have directional arrows. There's no way for them to move out of the screen. I mean, they can close out of the whole thing themselves, but as far as moving along with the lesson, they'll stay on whatever slide you have them on. So some of the things that you should know or note at the on this teacher console or teacher view is you can see the number of students in your lesson down here on the bottom left corner. So you see I have 3 students, okay? And some of you have joined, which is great. And now you'll notice that 2 of them are green. That means they're currently active on the Nearpod lesson, and then 1 of them is red. That means that they are not currently viewing the screen. And so this is a quick way for us as teachers to see who is engaged in the lesson, who is participating, and who is off task. Okay, so I can, and then if you note, there is a red color right on the silhouettes of these people over here. So that notifies me that there's somebody who either signed out of the Nearpod lesson or is off task and doing something else. Okay. If this were green, then I would know that everybody is engaged. Everybody is active on the lesson. Okay. Quick and easy way to tell. Yes, every lesson will generate a code. Yes, and the code will be random. It will be always 5 letters, right? Never any numbers, just 5 letters. Now, let me go ahead and move through this lesson just to show you a couple of things. So here we have just some informational slides. Here in these slides, we're reviewing the different shapes with the students. But then we come across an activity. Okay? This is a draw it activity. So we have a task for the students to do. And if I click here, I get to see that the task is to draw in the background image. We're going to draw a blue square. okay? So on the student view, they don't get to see all of that. They just see this, right? They get to see draw a blue square. Now there's a spelling mistake there. You can ignore that. And then we can take our markers. This is a draw activity, so they can click on a marker, scroll up here, and then just start to draw in color. This works on an iPad, so they can do this with their finger if they don't have a mouse, or they can do it on a mouse. Touch screens work as well if they have a touchscreen computer. Okay, so there's quite a few tools on here. We have markers, we have highlighters, there's text box, they can insert an image. So we have many different options. There's the eraser if they make a mistake, and then they can undo their last step or clear the whole thing. So I would encourage you to play around with the draw just to get comfortable with the tools. The students will have to know how to enlarge or you shrink their brush size by scrolling up and down on this side here. They are limited in colors to just what's on here, but that's okay. Most of the activities will do fine with just these colors. When the students are done, let me just draw a little bit here so you can see. So I'm gonna start to trace, okay? And then I'm gonna switch over to my teacher view. And what I want you to note is that I can see what the students are working on. I can see their progress as they are completing this activity, okay? So this teacher view is updated every few seconds or so to show the progress. Okay, and then when they're done, I'm gonna just go ahead and submit my work. Let's say I'm done with this slide, so I can submit my work. The teacher will know I've submitted because it turns green. Okay, this tells me that it is done, that they've completed the activity, and then we can move on to the next thing. I do want to warn you that if you are on a live lesson and you move on to the next slide, it will move on for everybody. So if a student is not done, or they say they're not done, they have to press the submit button. I mean, you should give them some type of time limit so that they move on. As a class, you guys can move on and complete the next activity. So that just kind of be aware of that. If you do press this, it will jump ahead to the next activity and they won't be able to finish. Now here we have some more drawed activities. I'm not gonna go ahead and show you all of this lesson, but just to let you know, that's pretty much how it would run. You have some informational slides. You have some slides with different activities such as drawing. There's a matching game. There's fill in the blanks. There's virtual VR scenes that you can explore together. It's really quite, you know, it has quite a few activities that you can integrate into this. I'm seeing a question here. Can you use already made Google Slides for this program? Yes, you can. And I'll be showing that in a second. Yeah. Does the teacher screen can be viewed for the students if you're on Zoom? If you're sharing your screen, then yes. I'm sharing my screen to show you guys everything that I as a teacher would have access to. If you prefer not to share this screen, you can just be on the camera and progress through the activities just by moving these arrows. Or another possibility is if you use in the share screen for Zoom, you have the option to only share one window. And so you can have one separate window as the teacher view and a second separate window, not a tab, but a second window open to maybe a different browser. Logged in as a student, so you can model for the students what their screen looks like while still keeping everybody's like what they're producing, you know, hidden from everybody else. So if you share, instead of sharing your entire screen, you just share that one window, you should be able to prevent other people from, other students from viewing what's been submitted. However, having said that, a lot of the times the students, especially the younger students, kinder and first grade, they want to share with their friends what they've done. They want to be recognized for what they've accomplished. And one of the fun things about Nearpod here, as I switch back, is if I want to highlight what a student did, then I can click on the student and actually there should be a share button. Oh, give me 1 second. Yeah, when they've submitted their work, there is a share button on the top here. And if I click on this, it will share this work with everybody on their device. Okay, so that's one way that instead of having the kids share their screen through Zoom, if you're on a Nearpod, once they submit their work, you can actually share it for them across everybody's device, and then maybe ask them to speak on what they produce. You're welcome. Oh, when they're on the student screen, the little lock here. So this will, I think, will prevent different modifications. Guess not. To be honest, I haven't used that lock, so that's a good question. I'll have to research that and get back to you. Is there a camera on Nearpod and microphone? No. There is no camera or microphone. You might have seen this button up here on the top. This is actually the Immersive Reader. So you can click on that, and just to demonstrate what that looks like, you can adjust the voice settings here, but I'm just gonna go ahead and press play, right? And it will
draw a
read it
blue
for
square.
them, and then they can, of course, come in here and change some of the contrast options or the size, right? Any of that. So this Immersive Reader tool, anywhere that there's text, even on the Draw It features or the Draw It activities, it will pop up. Can you place a picture on the child's screen? When you're making your Nearpod, if you would like to provide them with an image, you can add that to the slide. And let's say I want, for instance, this outline of the square is actually an image that is now embedded into the canvas area of their activity, right? So if you wanted them to maybe see a passage and highlight different areas, so you can use the highlighter here and click and drag, and it will highlight over certain words, or just for any activity where you might need a highlighter, you want them to identify different things. You can put it as a draw it activity and then ask them to circle or trace over, right? So there is that option. If you are trying to communicate with students while doing the Nearpod lesson, you would have to have a different medium such as Zoom. So ideally you'd have a Zoom session going, and then if you need to explain something, you can explain it and have them on Nearpod at the same time, which is right now actually what we're doing for some of our classes is we have Nearpod activities and we're on Zoom, and the students are following along to our directions, but they are actually viewing the Nearpod screen and working on it. So as long as they can hear your voice and see the Nearpod screen, then they should be okay. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just end this session here, this activity. I'm going to go ahead and end the session just to show you what the reports are going to look like. So we've closed it out. It should have closed it out for everybody. Here's my student screen. It said session ended. Your teacher has ended the session. You were signed in. Okay, that's fine. It's going to take me out of the session. Okay. Now, let me show you the reports. Once you're done with your Nearpod activity, back on our dashboard, on the left side, we have reports. And here is, as you complete more Nearpods with your class, you'll see more of these activities populate. The most recent one is always going to be at the top. So I'm going to click on my shapes lesson. And here I have session from, this is just a few minutes ago. We'll click on that. And here is a summary of the activities. So we have, if there were any quizzes, we'd have that information here, or polls, open-ended questions, let students give a typed response to a prompt. You have the Draw It feature, which if I want to go back and view what the students submitted for each of the Draw It projects, I can click on them. And then I have a list here of their work. Now, and again, we also have some other things such as matching pairs, climb to the top. These are just different types of activities that are available on the Nearpod sessions. Okay. If you wanted to download a copy of this, you can click on the download button, and you can save this as a PDF. I believe is the for the free version, PDF is what we'll save. I don't believe it'll let you do student view. Oh, it might. Awesome. So we can go ahead and download just for one particular student or for the entire class. Okay, so let me close this out. Okay. So let me check the chat. I see that there's a couple of comments here. So if they have an iPad and you're worried that they won't be able to have the Zoom session open and the Nearpod session, on the iPad, if they press the home button, you won't see their face, but they'll still be able to hear you. And so that's how we've actually managed to run the lessons with students on tablets, and is we let them know, hey, if you push the home button, you're not gonna see us, but you'll still be able to listen to my directions. And so they're able to tap on the links that we give them or access the Nearpod login screen and go through the lesson. They might not see it in front of them. If they want to, they'd have to switch back and forth between Zoom and Nearpod. But as long as they're listening and they're seeing the screen in front of them, they should be able to follow along. Okay, so now let's go back and let's talk about finding lessons. Sorry, I went ahead and clicked on something. So on the left side, I believe I mentioned that there is a Nearpod lesson library that we can search through to find different lessons. One of the handy thing about the Nearpod library is you can filter through the lessons, as there are thousands of lessons on here. So you can filter through by grade level. You can filter by resource type if you want a virtual reality lesson, your skill builders, there's different categories on here. If you wanted to search for a math lesson, so you can select, for instance, second grade math, and it will start to narrow down your options on here. If you wanted to instead look through a particular standard, you can also do that as well. You can click on this drop down, and you can filter through Common Core standards and GSS. There's quite a few options here. There's one for every state. Okay, so you can select one of these, such as Common Core. Let's go ahead and select math, second grade. Okay, and some of these are paid, just kind of like your teacher paid teacher sites, but a lot of them are free to use. Okay, so you can just kind of take a look and see if you can find one that suits your needs. You can simply, let's say I wanted to take advantage of a free one here. I can click on the lesson. I can preview the lesson before adding it to my library. So I can go through and click preview. And again, here's the standard that we filtered through. Okay. And you can preview the lesson, see if it's something that you would like to use. And if it is, you can press the save button. And notice how it says lesson successfully added. So now, if I go back to my library, you see that lesson is now added on here onto my lessons, and I can run a live lesson or student-paced lesson. So there's thousands of different lessons on there for us to use. If you want to filter to only see the free ones, you could also select that option here. And again, just look through here, see if there's anything that you would like to use. If there's not, then we do, of course, have the option of making one from scratch. And we do have a couple of options when it comes to that. So let me go ahead and move on to that part of the presentation. So we've gone ahead and searched through the library, but we think that, I think I want to make my own Nearpod lesson. And I'm going to do it first from Nearpod, and then I'll talk about doing this from Google Slides. So in the dashboard, we select lesson in Nearpod, and it's going to open up to a brand new lesson. You can see we have our title up here at the top. Okay, so if I wanted to do a lesson on shapes, I can maybe provide that title. We have to add a description. Okay, I'm just going to type in sample description, but you do have to provide a description and then what the target grade is. Let's do kindergarten. You can select multiple grades on here, and then the subject. So we'll call this math and press submit. Okay, that's one of the first things you should do, simply because it won't allow you to create it unless you do have all those settings filled in. So you need to have a title, you need to have a description, and categorize it by grade level and by subject. Now we have a blank presentation right here. We're going to go ahead and add a new slide. You can kind of think of this as an interactive Google slide, if you will. One that has activities and videos, and the students are actually producing something in the slide, not just sitting and watching. So it's an interactive slide lesson, if you will. I'm going to press the plus sign here, and we're given three main options: add content, add web content, and add an activity. So if I want to begin by maybe giving a title for my activity, I would start with the add content. And a first option here is a slide. So I'm going to click on that. And you'll notice that it kind of looks like a Google slide template, where it has some pre-made fields for us to fill in. Okay, so if this is my lesson on shapes, I can type that in as a title. I have some theme options off to the side that I can choose from to change the look and feel of my lesson. And then we can drag and drop files or pictures or images on here. Okay, so if I wanted to add a picture of, let's say, just different geometric shapes, I can press the plus sign here and select image. And one of the handy things is that it actually lets me do a Google image search right from this pop-up. Okay. I can have access to the images in my computer and upload them, or anything in my Google Drive or Dropbox or OneDrive. But right now I'm just going to go ahead and do a Google image search for, let's say, simple shapes. Okay. And if we find one that you like, you can just click on it and then press the save button, and it will upload that image to your presentation, to your slide. If you wanted to change the layout or the look of the slide, there is the layout button here. You can also add a background or provide some audio. If you want to see what it looks like or what it will look like for the students, you can click on the preview button and you can take a quick look. And again, it actually shows the Immersive Reader that we've enabled. And so you can preview what that will look like for them as well. I'm going to go ahead and save this slide. And it's going to ask me to confirm. I'm going to say yes, save it. Okay. And it will take a little while, but it will save that slide. And while it's saving that one slide, I can actually move on and continue building my Nearpod. If I wanted to maybe provide a draw it activity or a matching activity, I can press here. This is the add activity button. Now there's many different options. I don't think I can go through all of them, but I'm just going to highlight some of the most used activities here. So draw it is the one we saw earlier. I'm going to click on the draw it here. Our instructions are going to go on top. So I'm just going to say draw a blue square. If I wanted to provide them with additional media, video, audio instructions, and I have that file, I can actually attach it to my instructions here. I can click on this button and say whether it's an image, whether it's a video, a PDF, audio, web content. There's a lot of different options here. So if you need to provide extra context to your activity, you can do so by embedding or adding one of these things to your directions. If you wanted to limit the amount of time they have to complete this, you can add a timer. Okay. I typically don't, but if you feel that you need to just help kind of move the lesson along, you can set the number of minutes and seconds here, and it will limit them to that amount of time. Okay. Now, in the middle here, this is where the canvas would be, but you'll notice that there is this large button that says upload background image. So I can actually click on this and upload a template if I had one about that square background that I had earlier, where it was an outline of a square and they had to trace it. So if I did have something like that I wanted to provide for them, then you can always upload your own images to the Draw It activity. Yes, so I'm going to circle back to student-paced lessons in a little bit. I just want to model some more of these activities for you guys, but just as a quick note, student-paced lessons will allow them to log in without having a teacher present per se, controlling the lesson. So it would provide the same thing, a code that they can log in, but they'll be able to navigate through the lesson themselves. So they would get those navigational arrows. So let me go ahead and save this. I'll press the blue save button. Okay, and you see that we have our title and we have our Draw It activity. Just to show a few more activities that you can incorporate here, I'll show a open-ended question. So we can provide them with a prompt here. I'm just going to type in, what is your favorite shape? Okay, and again, you can enable, this is a new feature here, you can enable student audio recordings. So if you turn this on, it will allow the students to record their voice and answer, instead of typing it in, they could answer by speaking into the Nearpod. Or you can also provide them with videos or audio instructions or link to another website, the same thing, and you can also add a timer. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And if I ever wanted to stop and just preview the entire lesson, on this screen, on the lesson creation screen, you can press the preview button down here at the bottom, and you'll have a student preview. It might take a little while to generate, a few seconds, but you'll get to see the title slide, the first activity, okay, and then the open-ended question. Okay, so you see that here the question is on top, and then they have this large text box where they could type up their response. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close out of here. I'm done with my preview for now. I'm just going to go over the different types of content you can add. I won't be able to show everything just because of the lack of time, but know that you can do or select a field trip, a 3D virtual reality field trip. Nearpod has a lot of pre-made scenes where they can click and drag and look, have a 360 view of different areas. If you do use Microsoft Sway, you can also add in a presentation in Sway. You can do a slideshow where it will show multiple images and you'll be able to go through them. You have video, audio, PDF, and the last one we don't really use, it's a live Twitter stream, but those are available to you. Now, if you wanted to add a website or a link to a website in the middle of your Nearpod, you can click Add Web Content and paste in the URL. I wouldn't do this necessarily with young students since it might be confusing for them to go from the Nearpod screen to an external website and have to bring them back. Maybe if you teach older students, they'll be fine with that. But I would advise against that for younger students. And then for the activities here, we have Time to Climb, which will show them like a progress as they're going up and down, up a mountain, right, up a hill. So it's a series of questions. It's basically a different form of a quiz. You type up the question here and possible choices, and as they get it right, they go up the hill. Okay. You can also, you notice up here at the top, they have a time limit. This can be modified to 1 minute, 30 seconds, whatever your preference is. Of course, you can add images. and then you can duplicate and or delete this question. If I had multiple questions and I needed to rearrange them, you can simply drag. Notice if I hover over this area, there's these 6 dots. It says drag to reorder, so I can click and drag if I needed to and change the order. I might need to make this smaller here first. There we go. Click and drag, and it will change the order. I'm gonna cancel out of this here. Let me see. Yes, so you'll notice that as I'm adding content, the size of my Nearpod is getting larger and larger. In the free account, you have a limit of 20 megabytes, I believe, for your lesson. Now, right now, I only have 3 slides, and I don't have very many images. There's not a lot of high resolution images on here, so my Nearpod won't take up that much space. However, if you do add a lot of content, or you embed a video, or you just keep adding things, you want to keep an eye on the size of this Nearpod. Okay, so I believe for a free account is 20. If you do get the subscription, I believe it doubles to 40 megabytes, which is more than enough, I feel like, for the lessons. Okay, and as far as also the number of students, there is a limit on the number of students you can have at one point, or any one time during a live lesson. That's 40. So you have a maximum of 40 students at a time on a live lesson, which should be below your classroom size. Okay, now, just to show a few more activities, we saw the open-ended question, matching pairs. This is just a fun activity where students get to match a couple of images or text. If we want to add a pair, and just to model, we'll do capital and lowercase letters. Okay, I know it's a little bit small, but ideally you'd have an image and text, or 2 images that they're flipping over. So we can just press done here. And if I want to preview this, I actually think I need to add a couple more. So let's just do a couple more, capital and lowercase letters. And here we go. Once I have 4, I can preview this, and we just have to match them up. So that is the matching pairs. Okay, let me go ahead and cancel out of this. And we have the quiz, which is basically the time to climb, except there's no limit, and it's just 1 question at a time. Collaborate, if you wanted to, it creates a virtual board where you can ask a question and students will add virtual sticky notes or pin them to the board. So it could be a good way to brainstorm some ideas on a topic. You can take a poll of the class, ask them a question, see what their opinion is. You can do a fill in the blanks or a memory test. So this will just either have, again, text or images, and they have to flip and match the pairs. All right, so once I'm done with my Nearpod lesson, let's say I'm happy with everything, I can go ahead and save it. I press the save and exit button, and it will be added to my library. I did mention earlier that you can share these lessons with other people. As soon as this finishes saving, I want to show you what that looks like in that process. Okay. I'm actually just going to go ahead and show you with a different lesson while this is saving. I'm going to press or hover over this first lesson. We did the shapes lesson. And oh, there we go, it finished. So let's hover over these 3 dots here. And then you have share with teachers. So we can click on shared with teachers. And you'll notice that the first thing it opens to is the link. Now there's 2 links, and I do want to make you aware that these are very different links. The first one is preview only. So if I give a teacher this link, this preview link, let me open it up on a second tab here. or a separate tab. I can only preview the lesson. I can see what it's about. I can see the slides. I cannot actually use the lesson. And this is just a preview of it. If I want to share the lesson with another teacher so that they can run it on, with their class, then I want to give them this editable link. Okay, this will allow them to make a copy of the lesson for themselves and add it to their own library. So I'm going to open that up here on a separate tab, and you'll see this is what pops up. It's going to say, this teacher has shared a lesson with you. Would you like to add it to your library? And then they would click add to my library. So again, those are very different links, and I do want to make you aware of that. If you send out this preview only link, they won't be able to make a copy of it. You need to send the editable link so that your colleagues can have a copy of the Nearpod. Now, if you did want to also embed this onto a Google site, if you were here last week and watched our Google Sites training, you can click embed here, and it gives you the code. This is the HTML code to embed the preview of the Nearpod lesson into a Google site. Okay, so I think I mentioned last week that there are some websites that will give you code that you can add to your own site, such as the Google site, and this would be one of them. So this code can be copied and added to a Google site or any other site that uses HTML. You can also email this, and there are some other options on here, but those aren't typically used, so we won't really be covering that. Or you can also, actually, I think I mentioned that. You can share it, you can email it through your Outlook or Google or any of these services here. Okay. Just check the chat very quickly. Yes, it enables them not just to make changes to the lesson, but it will actually add it to their Nearpod lesson library. The preview, from the preview link, there is no way for them to select, make a copy of this lesson for myself. So they have to get the editable link. Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about lessons in Google Slides. So if you do have a Google slide presentation that you want to convert onto a Nearpod, there is a way to do that. So I have here this Nearpod presentation. So I'm going to click here, lesson in Google Slides. And let me share my entire screen so you guys can see what's happening. Okay. I'm going to stop the share and reshare for a second. Okay. So now you should see this pop-up that came up, and I have to allow Nearpod access. So I'm going to click on my account, click allow. So this is just giving it permission to have access to my Google Drive. So now it's going to take me into a Google slide. Okay, and here's a little preview. Nearpod slides cannot be copied and pasted. Okay, so that's very important to know. You can't just right-click and duplicate. That doesn't work with the Nearpod slides. You'll see the difference in a little bit. So just keep that in mind. If you have an activity like a draw it activity on the Google slide presentation, you won't be able to copy it. You would have to recreate it, make a new one. So to actually utilize the Nearpod features on Google Slide, you need an add-on. And if we look up here at the top, we have the add-ons menu. And this has been enabled by us already. It's the Nearpod or the Nearpod extension for Google Slides. If you don't have this already enabled, you might have to do a quick Google search for Nearpod and Google Slides, and it will install the extension so that you can use the Nearpod functions and features on a Google slide. So I'm going to click Open Nearpod, and you'll see I'll get a pop-up menu on the side here. going to take a little while to load, but you'll notice that I have access to all of the activities here. So I can embed audio, I can do the draw activities, a field trip, fill in the blank. So from here, I can simply click on one. I can populate what I need to from here. And then, so I'm just going to put some sample text and save it. And you'll see it'll show up here on the side. Now this slide cannot be duplicated. Everything has to be recreated on this Nearpod menu on the side here. Let me just check the chat. No, if the other people who use your editable link modify their Nearpod lesson, it will not affect your lesson. So going back to this, however, so this was a Nearpod slide. I can also just use the slides in Google Slide, the different templates, and make my own and rearrange those. Okay, so if you are more comfortable utilizing Google Slides to create content, then you can use it through this add-on. Okay, if you actually go into Google Slides and go into the add-ons menu, you can go to get add-ons and do a quick search for Nearpod. So it's actually one of the first ones that shows up here. So as long as this is installed, you might have to click on it and then do a refresh of your screen. You will have access to this. Okay. Now, when you're done with it, when you're done with your Google Slide, I'm just going to delete this first one. Okay. When you're done with your Nearpod lesson on Google Slides, you can press this save and go to Nearpod. Okay, and you'll see that the presentation will be loaded on here. Okay. So if you have a current presentation and you go to add-ons, Nearpod, and open it up, such as this one I have here, I can actually just save my presentation that I have right now to Nearpod through this add-on. So I don't have to recreate it or import slides. I can just open up that slide presentation, go to my add-ons and open up Nearpod, and then just save it and go to Nearpod. So that's the quick and easy way to convert all your Google Slide presentations into a Nearpod activity. Now I did cover quite a bit. Let me just double check here to make sure everything I mentioned is talked about here, make sure I didn't skip anything. We went over how the students will log in and creating the lessons. We talked about the reports. Yeah. So the other side or slide that's on here, there are some Nearpod resources. This is a blog that has different resources for Nearpods and how to create them. And then we have a Nearpod community that you can take advantage of on there. Okay. But that is pretty much going to do it for me in my presentation. Hopefully this gave you some insight as to how Nearpod works and how you might utilize it with your long distance learning or even just in the classroom. Somebody did mention, now that I'm remembering, to talk a little bit more about Student Pace. So I did mention Student Pace is free for at least until the end of this school year. So if I wanted to give out a lesson and have my students work on it from home at their own time or for homework, if I click the Student Paced option, we have this message here that we have access through June 30th. So we're going to press continue. And this is the code that I would give out. Okay. So this is the code that I would give out to the students. And notice how at the bottom it says it's valid from Thursday, today, until Saturday, June 13th. So 29 days on this code. Okay, so I'm going to just very quickly show you that difference for the students, nearpod.com/student. And I'll paste in this code. And you'll see that, just gonna go ahead and join the session, where before I didn't have these directional arrows, I now have access to move and progress through the Nearpod on my own. Okay. So you can use this to have them work on it without having you necessarily be present and running the whole thing. They do have access to all the tools like the Immersive Reader, the draw it activities, they'll have access to everything on. You're welcome. Okay, so that's going to be pretty much it from me today. Again, I hope that you enjoyed today's presentation. If you do have any questions, now would be the time to ask. I'll be answering any questions from the chat. Or if you'd prefer to unmute yourself, please go ahead and do so, and I'll be here to answer any questions. If not, just a quick reminder, this video will be uploaded on YouTube, and the link to this Google slide presentation will also be on that YouTube video. Let me post it in the chat one more time in case you didn't get a chance to copy it. If you could please, when you do, if you do go back and watch the video, which we'll send a link to, if you find it informative, please go ahead and share it with anybody that might need this information. Leave a comment, leave a like, or subscribe to our channel. That would really help us out. And then feel free to browse through our different tutorials, our different PDs that we have on there. There's a whole playlist on professional development.
I have a question.
Yes.
So if we want our students to go on Nearpod, do they have to also sign into Nearpod, or is it enough that we are sending them the code?
Yeah, the only thing they need is the code. They don't need anything else. So let me go ahead and sign out here. So they'll come to a site that looks like this, nearpod.com/student.
Okay.
They can do this from any device. It works on an iPad or tablet or phone. And then all they need is the code. They don't need to log in with their MyMail. They don't need to have accounts. They just log in with the code, and then they type in their name, and that's how we know who's completed the Nearpod.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, other presentations are available on that YouTube channel. There's one coming up next week on Google Classroom. I know some of you here might have already gone through that presentation. And then the week after that, we have another one on Google Sheets. And we'll be talking about spreadsheets and formulas and just how to work with spreadsheets on that presentation. Yeah. So, but everything that we're providing will also be available on our YouTube channel. Okay, you're welcome. I'll be sticking around for a few more minutes. If you do have any questions, you prefer to send me an email, here's my information at the bottom. It's Josue Sanchez. I'm the program manager for ComputerWise Kids. You can reach me at jsanchez@computerwisekids.com. Feel free to send me any questions you may have. I might take a little while to get back to you, but I promise I will respond as early as I can. All right, if there are no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and end the session. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great Friday tomorrow. Have a good one.